Hi, I'm Ben.
And I'm Josh.
And this is a Bad at Magic podcast, a podcast about games, life, and other things. And welcome to episode 91.
Ben, when's the last time you handled coinage, actual U.S. coins, cents, fractions of a dollar?
I could go down. Okay, Josh, I'm a little bit older than you, and I came from where money, handling cash money was the lifeblood of the economy. And now I try to avoid it, but I also have some context in which I prefer handling cash money. So I've handled coinage this week.
Why? In what context did you handle U.S. coinage?
Okay, sometimes it's the most convenient way to interact with a snack fund in a military facility that you live in, and when it's difficult otherwise to get access to just snacks or drinks or things like that. Other instances is sometimes when I'm interacting in a situation like at a restaurant or a gas station where I could tell there's going to be problems with the electronic infrastructure and I just want the transaction to go smoothly. Or if I want to be able to give a tip to a service worker and I prefer to meet it out in cash so that they can have more discretion rather than putting it in electronically. Those are the situations in which I prefer cash.
Oh, so what you mean is you prefer to be able to have your servers pocket their tips as opposed to splitting them with the rest of their shift like they're supposed to.
Okay, you demonstrated this really astutely in a conversation you and I had before. That's up to them. I am giving them a gift, and whether or not they report it on their taxes is up to them.
All right, well, spoken like a true Gen X, because I can't remember the last time I had coins. It was probably within the last 6 months, and I remember having the coins in my hand and thinking to myself, what am I supposed to do with this?
I am averse to it. Someone handed me coin change this week, and I looked at it, and I dumped it in the tip jar and kind of rubbed my hands together like gross.
Oh, man, before the touchless, the contactless payment was big in my life, whenever I did handle cash, I would put my hand deliberately over the tip jar for them to drop the coins in.
Uh-huh.
And then I would just, as they were dropping it, I would just rotate my hand 90 degrees so they put it directly into the tip jar, because I don't want that. I'm not carrying around this metal all day. That seems so barbaric.
It kind of is. I hope we see it go extinct soon, but what has that got to do with the number 91?
So the U.S. Mint in 2020, this is the most recent data that I could find. In 2020, how many coins do you think the U.S. Mint created? Brand new coins to put into circulation.
Okay, I'm always astonished at the amount of effort and raw metals we put into coinage. So it's really high, I'm guessing.
It's absurdly high. I had to read the article multiple times to make sure, no, this can't possibly be right. Ben, in 2020, the U.S. Mint in 2 facilities introduced 14.7 billion with a B new coins into circulation.
The Denver Mint and the Philadelphia Mint, I'm guessing.
How did you know that off the top of your head?
Because they have D's and P's on them. On the coin, if you look at it really close, there'll be a little D or a little P, and that's what it means.
It's episode 91. I don't know why I'm still surprised that you know more about the things that I bring up than I do.
That's a lot of money. 11 billion?
14.7 billion new coins.
Holy crap. But this isn't the kind of thing that just disappears. So okay, I don't even want to try to think of the economics of that because my head almost exploded just now.
Well, and here's what blows my mind is first, that there's a distribution across all the different coins that we use in the U.S., including, this is crazy, $1 coins and $half-dollar coins. That not only are they still a thing, they still produce new ones.
Okay.
So they produced 2.6 million Native American $1 coins. They produced 5.7 million half-dollars, 2.7 billion quarters, 2.7 billion dimes, 1.6 billion nickels, and Ben, this is what just blew my mind, 7.5 billion new pennies. What are we doing with the pennies? Yeah,
isn't a penny worth less than the metals it's made out of?
It at one point it was, and that's why they had to make it illegal to deface U.S. currency, because people were taking literal dump trucks of pennies into Canada to melt them down for the copper.
Wow. Yeah, we need to do that. What a waste. Okay, but what does that got to do with 91? Is there a 91 cent coin I don't know about?
There's not a 91 cent coin, but if you have one of the most common coins, I say the most common, if you have a $half, if you have a quarter, a dime, a nickel, and a penny, one of each, it adds up to 91 cents.
Got it. It's 41 plus 50.
What?
Because if I always see you had the most common coins, it would be a quarter, a dime, a nickel, and a penny, which is 41 cents.
Oh, okay.
I guess if
and then
you
you
throw
add
in
the
a
50 cents.
if you throw in a 50-cent piece, which is less common, but okay, 91 cents. Episode 91. We did it.
Man, listen, I reached far for it, but I stumbled across something that I thought was interesting, like the fact that for some reason we're still wasting money creating metal coins.
I like it. Well, speaking of pointlessly counting money, Josh, I know you're trying to get recognized by some board in the state of Arizona as an official counter of money. How's that coming along?
Excuse me, it's the Arizona State Board of Accountancy, sir. This is a professional
well,
accreditation.
Last time you talked about it on the podcast, you had turned in your application to get your final CPA and were unfortunately notified and fortunately helped by a very helpful state employee that you needed to take at 1 or 2 more classes in order to have your degree certified.
Yes. She was super helpful and continues to be extremely helpful. But yes, she informed me that I needed to take 1 more class. And so that day I signed up for an undergrad level accounting class from University of Phoenix that I had to have like some waiver for because I didn't have the prerequisites to take that class.
Even though we talked about that.
Yeah, I'd already gotten a master's in accounting from that institution, but they still had to make sure it was okay. Anyway,
but that was long enough ago. You should be done with that class by now.
That class was 5 weeks long, and I'm not kidding you, Ben, when I said like the first week that the course was going, the coursework was on material that I was presenting to paying clients as an instructor. Like I was being paid to teach people the stuff that I was being tested on in this class.
Sometimes bureaucracy is so painful. Yes, you could have taught the class. You were doing that stuff every day, but you had to take the class to check the box.
I took the class. I checked the box. I did pass the class with minimal effort and astounding grades, shockingly. I applied to the state board, and because it had been over a month, I had to pay the application fee again so they could look at the same pieces of paper. I had to pay to have a new transcript sent to them that has the 1 additional class that's on it that wasn't on there before.
That is insane.
And so now I'm at the point of the bureaucracy where it's in the application process where they have to review my application to make sure that I have actually checked all of the boxes that they want. If I haven't, or if I have, they will send me a letter in the mail letting me know if I have or if I have not and what my deficiencies are.
No emails,
no text messages, no phone calls. Because for some reason...
That's the thing that's official.
We have documented on this podcast. For some reason, like old-fashioned industries or government bureaucracies especially believe that if it's not a piece of paper that you got in the mail, is it really like an official notice?
Okay, I had one of those happen this week. I'll tell you about it later. So you haven't gotten that piece of paper yet.
I'm waiting on that piece of paper to show up to tell me, yay, verily, you have done everything that you need to do. And I'm really hoping that it's waiting for me in the mail like right now, because once the application process is done, my package has to go and be rubber stamped by a board, like the actual board of accountancy. There's a handful of people that sit on this board for the state, and they only meet to rubber stamp applications once a month. So that is coming up.
When you say rubber stamp, is it an actual rubber stamp?
I don't know. I have not dug that deep, but they have to. The members of the board have to, quote unquote, review your package and then vote yay or nay whether or not you should be a certified public accountant.
Why, Josh? Why are you doing this? Why are you going through all the pain? Why are you paying the application fee multiple times? Why do you want to be a professional bureaucracy expert?
Well, Ben, you'll find this out soon enough. In the civilian world, they don't care what your background is. They don't care what your education is in. They don't care what experience you have. They care about how many letters you can stack up after your name on your email. Your signature block. So this is going to be CPA, EA, MSA. And what's funny is I've heard that it's gauche to put your master's degree. I have a master's of science in accountancy, which is the MSA that I put on there. Uh-huh. But I'm told, I find in other sources that only people that got their degree from University of Phoenix put their master's degree in their signature block. And well, I did get my master's degree from University of Phoenix, and it's all I got right now. Once I get the CPA, I can drop that because the CPA encompasses the other thing.
Well, in the UK, it's the opposite. They really look forward to stacking those letters up after their name.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, the more letters I get after my name, basically the more appealing I am to employers, and therefore, theoretically, the more money that I will make. Because it goes back to time. Remember, Ben, I only have one commodity in my life, and that's time. And if I'm going to trade my time for money, I want to get as much money as possible for the same fixed amount of time.
Yes. Okay. But why, Josh? Why do you have an affinity for this?
I don't know.
Does this date back to your childhood or something? What?
All right, I'll tell you, affinity is the right word, because for some reason, I'll complain about bureaucracies all day, but at the same time, part of my brain wants to learn all the rules and how to navigate them.
Yeah, yes, we've established on this podcast that you're like, well, the Empire kind of has a point.
I'm on record as saying, spoilers for Star Wars. Andor is the first series that legitimately has an argument to say that the Empire wasn't all that great. Every other movie, there's no evidence that the Empire was anything but a fully functional and just robust bureaucracy to keep people in order. If you ever watch Futurama, if I was a Futurama character, I would 100% be a bureaucrat working in that central bureaucracy, doing just the inanest things all day, every day. I don't know why. And Ben, it is so in me. I realize, I without realizing, I will introduce it into every aspect of my life for no reason. I have a great example for this, and this is
okay.
I'm going to earn some serious nerd street cred with this one, Ben. The last Dungeons and Dragons campaign that I was DMing, because unfortunately, for all of you that play Dungeons and Dragons, I am a forever DM. That's just the way it goes. So I was DMing a campaign, and we were in a pseudo-public place. We had an apartment complex that one of our players did. We rotated where we played. And so he had this, rec room that we went and set up at the table and just played D&D there for one of the sessions. And we were playing, and somebody was walking through oh, you guys playing Dungeons & Dragons? That's so awesome. You mind if I just sit down and listen for a while? We're like, oh, yeah, sure. Pull up a chair, hang out. It was only then that I realized that entire session up to that point had been, in the previous session, the players had won a large chunk of money at a gladiatorial arena. And this entire play session, multiple hours, Ben, was setting up bank accounts with the local trade guilds and shopping for real estate. I was legitimately being a real estate agent and describing different properties in this city that they could purchase and the pros and cons and the school districts and crap like that. It was... And the person, the nerd that saw a Dungeons and Dragons game and said, "Oh, I want to watch this," sat down for 5 minutes, realized what we were doing, got up and left. God, these guys are nerds.
when you were little and you guys were playing house, you were like, "Ooh, I want to be the DMV agent.
I want to be a doctor. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a mid-level government bureaucrat."
Oh man. So there's a McDonald's in Texas where it's almost entirely automated. You can go through the whole order and delivery process without seeing a human.
Oh, that's fantastic. Why is it only in
Texas? I know
Texas?
It's fantastic. How soon can we have this? Okay, this gets at something else I want to talk about. Have you ever listened to Malcolm Gladwell's podcast called Revisionist History?
No, I don't listen to that.
Okay, so he did an episode this week where him and a friend of his went to Chandler, Arizona, so that they could ride in a publicly self-driven car service just for the purpose of trying it out. An autonomous car in Arizona called Waymo.
Okay, I have heard about that. I have not tried it because I have nowhere to go.
I think you should. I'm interested in this. So, I was talking about McDonald's being automated, and all the problems that we have with it kind of come with the human element. If you have a robot and it's not getting people through fast enough, you don't say you need to get them through faster or tell them to pull ahead or else you're going to get in trouble. You just figure out how to make the robot work faster. Okay. Because it's not delaying, it's not making mistakes, it's just doing what it's told.
Well, and that's where the argument comes in for automation, right? It's the automation is very good about doing a strict set of repeated procedures over and over as efficiently as possible, yes?
Yes.
But the human is good at catching those fringe cases, the weird edges. And if you happen to fall into one of those weird edges in a fully automated process, you're going to be in for a bad time.
Right. If something goes catastrophically wrong, a human can kind of figure out how to get around it where a machine is just done.
I love seeing those little videos where they're demonstrating this robot creates a hamburger from start to finish.
Yeah.
But then the bun gets 2 inches too far to the left or something. Yep. Yeah. And then everything is just chaos and hectic after that.
Yes. It's still going to take a lot of flexibility and artificial intelligence to really turn this into a fully automated process, but we want it to. And we think that we're getting rid of these kind of things that we create where we tell a fast food worker, you got to hurry up and get someone out in front of the window, and then they send them off somewhere and forget about them. That's obviously not the intent. It's just a perverse outcome of these incentives that they're trying to put in place to get what they want. So you think that with a robot, you're doing away with that, but what you're actually doing is getting a different set. So Malcolm Gladwell started off by talking about automated cars and gave the usual arguments in favor of them about doing away with traffic accidents, being more efficient, saving lives, all those kinds of things. But he explored this corner case of it, and that is in the contest between automobiles and pedestrians, there's this guessing game where there's an X factor, and the X factor is that there's a human behind the wheel. Like when you step out into a crosswalk, you don't just go out with abandon without looking both ways. You're still kind of checking to make sure that one, they saw you, and two, that they don't want to kill you anyway.
Yeah, if you're I did that earlier today, crossing the grocery store parking lot. I made eye contact with the guy that was going to run me down. I made sure that he saw me, that his vehicle came to a stop, and he gave me the little hand flickers before I actually walked out into traffic.
Yes. So one, you've got to make sure they're paying attention. And two, maybe they got a grudge and they're having a bad day and they would deliberately hit you or something like that. That could happen. You could be a crazy person, whatever. You don't know. And because you don't know, you're still a little bit careful. Now, in a world where all the cars are automated, they don't have any of that X factor. They're always paying attention perfectly, and they don't ever want to hit you under any circumstances.
That sounds outstanding. This is one of those cartoons where a person walks out into like just ridiculous traffic and comes out the other side unscathed.
Yes, stay with me here, Josh.
Okay.
But it now turns pedestrians into gods.
So extrapolating that to the absolute worst case scenario, you have one person that's just dissatisfied with the world that walks out in the middle of Times Square or some other like heavy traffic intersection that you see in some big city and just causes an automated self-driving car panic.
Gridlock. Anyone that wants to can walk out into any road anywhere and bring traffic to a halt and stay there as long as they want. The car's not going to get impatient. It's not going to try to hit them. It's just going to stop.
No, it might nudge. If this happens enough times, we can have the nudging protocol where it's just slow enough. It's not going to hurt them, but it's definitely going to it's a car versus a person is an unstoppable force. It will push you out of the way.
Okay, Josh, as much cultural inertia as there is against cars inadvertently hitting people, before we allow the nudging protocol, a lot of bad stuff is going to happen.
Fair enough. That's a weird French case. But
what happens if you're in the automated McDonald's drive-thru and it tells you to pull forward and you don't?
Ooh. Well, then it just overrides the autopilot in your self-driving car. And it pulls forward for you. Or the whole restaurant rotates. Like you're not in. It's like one of those automated car washes. You have to pull up to where you order your food and then put your car into neutral because it's just going to hook the undercarriage and pull you along.
Yes. The point I was making behind all of that is we have a bit of an uneasy truce, a stasis that exists in our society that keeps the pedestrians in check and the drivers in check because you never know if somebody's going to do something crazy. But if you make that completely one-sided and give all the power to one side, it's going to change the balance and therefore the power will move.
Well, let's take a step back because you realize city planning as it is right now is built around the automobile as it's been
that's
since
going to take a
1900s.
few years, but yes.
Well, if for example, if we look towards a utopian future where all cars are self-driving, we can eliminate stoplights entirely because now the automated cars can just interact directly with the other cars approaching the intersection. And you've seen those simulations on the internet where they can just like this one speeds up a little bit, this one slows down a bit. They all weave between
interlace.
each other. Yeah, no stopping anywhere ever.
I can't wait.
Once we get to that point, though, when does a pedestrian get to cross the street? The answer is never. So we're going to have to rebuild how pedestrians navigate a city that is interlaced with these streets that are designed specifically for cars that never stop.
Kind of, Josh. Or pedestrians realize that they have utter sovereignty when it comes to the roads and we no longer need crosswalks or stoplights or anything. They can just step out into traffic anytime they feel like it and traffic will instantly and automatically come to an utter and complete halt.
You know what? It's only our generation and younger, or no, it's our generation and older. So like probably Gen Z and then back towards the boomer age all of us, we're the only ones that are going to think that, like, oh, I can go out and stop traffic because I'm such a bad actor and how, like, I'm going to protest or whatever. But everybody that's born with that technology is going to be like, yeah, that's how you cross the street. You just walk across the street. Why would I stop the cars?
Yeah, but it's funny. You don't realize this, but now you're using the just world bias.
I'm not using the just world. No. Let's make this clear. I'm not using just world bias.
You're like, well, why would people want to stop traffic just to show that they can? Everybody wants traffic to flow freely.
No,
they don't.
What I'm saying is the baseline assumptions of those younger generations that grow up with this technology will be different than ours. We are assuming that somebody will want to go out and stop traffic just because they can, but they're just going to grow up in a society where why would you stop traffic? You just go to get to where you're going.
Yeah.
And then I have to go back to this because it's gnawing at my brain, because you ever have one of those moments where somebody says something and then your brain immediately connects like 5 different little stories in its head that it makes up all simultaneously?
All the time.
Okay, so you were talking about the McDonald's that has no people in it. It's just all automated. And my brain goes, what happens if something breaks down? And I thought, oh, well, they'll just hire one person to sit in there and monitor all the robots and then repair them when they break down. And I thought, well, that's not very economic. What if we could replace that person with a robot, a general purpose robot that they could remotely pilot from a centralized location? So now we have one tech that can remote into like 50 different McDonald's into the little general purpose robot with the hands to unmess up all of the hamburger making.
Okay,
robots.
so we're 3 levels deep now. Do you want to go one more than that?
One where it's just the only human beings that work for McDonald's are the ones at the corporate office, and like they just telework into all of the McDonald's everywhere across the world all the time.
Yeah, because you're never going to outsource the fact that people need to eat. Like, you can't virtualize that. They still need to consume calories to continue feeding their meat sack.
This is giving me great reminders. All right, we're so many tangents in, I don't care at this point. There was this great sci-fi book I read that was one of the better ones when it came to like extrapolating what military technology could look like if it got super ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it was this point where they had like, you have Marines, they had guys with guns because you can never get away from guys with guns to actually go operate and do things. But what was awesome is this guy like took aim with a sniper rifle and fired. And the second he pulled the trigger, the bullet like had a camera and like wings and like little fins on it, and then a drone pilot, like his screens all lit up, and like he had like a fraction of a second to assess like, okay, I'm a bullet, that's my target, let's fly to it. And this guy took over flying the bullet after it left the rifle. And like this one pilot was like really good at flying these tiny things, and so like it kept going back to him like doing all this stuff. Like he'd be sitting there in silence waiting, and all of a sudden his screens would light up. It's like, okay, I'm a grenade that a guy just threw and he's trying to get it over there, and then he would like try to fly the grenade better to where it was supposed to go.
Why was it a guy?
Well, because why? I don't know. You're right. It would probably absolutely be artificial intelligence doing it because they have a way better shot. In this book, it was just like everything was a drone. Like anything that could leave your person was a drone that was flown by somebody else.
I've found in all of my times traveling around the world, there's some things that are very homogenous from place to place, like the ebb and flow of decoration of the seasons. Okay. Especially within the United States. But being in the deep south like I am now, there's something that's different, and I'm sure it's not that way in Arizona, but it's different in Louisiana than it's been anywhere else I've been. And that is there's something that fills the gap between Christmas and Valentine's Day.
Oh, so the January lull.
Yes.
Okay, what goes on in Louisiana in January?
Well, it's in early February. It's related to the Christian tradition surrounding Easter. It actually goes all the way back to Fat Tuesday, and the holiday is called Mardi Gras.
Oh, I feel like I should have guessed that.
Okay, but here's the thing. They go all out. So, you know how, after Christmas, all the decorations disappear in all the stores, and then the seasonal aisle in the department store turns into the Valentine's Day aisle?
Yes.
Most everywhere else in the country. In Louisiana, it turns into the Mardi Gras aisle.
Okay, so booze and beads.
I'll put a photo in the album. It's these gaudy costumes, top hats, vests, shirts that are gold, green, and yellow, which clash and look horrible. I can't overstate how pervasive this is. People put gold, green, and yellow lights on their houses. People take the Christmas lights off their Christmas tree and put gold, green, and yellow lights on their Christmas trees, and now they're Mardi Gras trees.
I love how you're approaching this like a nature documentarist that has never seen this weird civilization cultural phenomenon ever before. Like, Yeah, I'm aware Mardi Gras is a thing and people go all out for it, but I didn't realize that there was, Mardi Gras trees.
Did you know there's official Mardi Gras food that isn't just alcohol?
That was going to be my guess. No, what is the Mardi Gras food?
There's this thing they call king cake.
Ooh.
It's really just a giant cinnamon roll with gold, green, and yellow sprinkles on it. But to make it specific to the season, they take a stupid little like plastic baby Jesus that won't melt in the oven. They stick it in the dough and then they cook it. And so now you have this giant cinnamon roll with the baby Jesus somewhere inside of it, and they call it a king cake.
Okay. Like the King of Kings cinnamon roll?
Yeah. I don't know. There's some kind of tradition, like if you get the baby Jesus, I don't know, you don't got to do the dishes or something. Whatever.
You make a wish.
Yeah, make a wish. So I'll post a photo in the album that I put up with this from my local Walmart. You can see the Valentine stuff lurking in the background, but really the main event right now is Mardi Gras.
I don't care about the Walmart aisle for Mardi Gras. I want your pictures at Mardi Gras. I want the selfie with you getting beads, man.
So that's coming up next weekend. We'll talk about it on the next episode of Bad at Magic.
No,
I'm gonna go this year.
You're gonna go to Mardi Gras.
Yeah,
you've got to, right? You have to. You have to experience
I can't move out of Louisiana without having experienced Mardi Gras.
Now, how many of your daughters and or wives are you taking?
Everybody's coming.
Everybody's coming.
For better or for worse, we're going to check this thing out.
What's the bead quota? Is there a minimum or a maximum beads that you're allowing your female family members to receive?
For better or for worse, we're going to check this thing out.
I think you should do it as a contest. You should do it by weight because some beads are going to be worth more than others. Like whoever comes back with the most weight in beads should win some kind of prize.
I feel like you've seen too many Girls Gone Wild videos. It's going to be way tamer than that, Josh.
Well, which Mardi Gras are you talking about, Ben?
I'm talking about the kind that happens in Shreveport, Louisiana.
I'm sure you could still probably
We're not going to the French Quarter in New Orleans.
Oh, is that what I'm thinking of?
Yeah.
Like the super stereotypical one. There's still going to be some beads, though, right? Like, how can it be Mardi Gras without the beads?
There will definitely be beads, but it'll be like candy at a 4th of July parade in Kansas. They throw it off the float and you get some. All right, something happened this week, Josh. Something I was kind of upset about, but I guess is one of the things we have to face in 21st century, and that is one of my favorite YouTube channels got taken down.
Like taken down, or they just stopped posting stuff?
Taken down.
Ooh, like what happened to all their old content?
All 7,000 videos ceased to exist.
Wow. Okay, so what channel got taken down and like that many videos like not just demonetized, but like this sounds like litigation stuff.
Okay, so yes. So I mentioned this before. About 8 years ago, I was on Reddit and somebody said something about sumo wrestling and posted a link to a video. And I found a guy named Jason Harris who runs a channel called Jason's All Sumo Channel on YouTube, where he would just sit in his living room, point his iPad at his TV, watch the NHK broadcast of sumo wrestling, and give American English commentary with the soul of a teacher, where he's teaching you as a non-sumo acolyte what's going on, why this is significant, what the move was, and talk about it. And he did this for a decade.
And then it sounds like he ran afoul of that sumo league's like legal department.
So NHK, the Japanese television station that did these original broadcasts, who'd let it go for 10 years, finally basically someone there got a burr under their saddle and said, we're going to start reporting to YouTube that these people are pirating our content.
Which now, they legitimately were, and they would only start doing that if they were going to start putting out content.
Now, Jason had never monetized his videos. He wasn't carrying ads. He wasn't making any money off of these videos. It was just a sumo fan giving American commentary over the top.
Yeah, but like in order for him to be fair use, it has to be transformative or satirical in some way.
I think it absolutely was. I think you can make a very strong case for that, but there's not a lot of due process. When a big corporation goes to another big corporation and says, that guy's stealing my content, and they look at it and go, oh, yeah, we'll take it down.
Well, it also comes back to if he is diverting revenue from the original intellectual property right holder. So if they didn't have any English-speaking outlet, then they would probably let him run and do his thing. But once he became a direct competitor, something they're trying to do internally, now it's a problem and you need to shut him down.
Maybe they're going to offer some type of new English language content or something like that.
Well, we're assuming they didn't hire Jason Harris to actually do it professionally.
Yeah, he's been on Twitter talking about what happened. Basically, he got cut off and he's done. So I will say this. I don't have access to NHK. I do have access to YouTube. And without Jason, I wouldn't have become a sumo fan. And I'm really going to miss him. And it kind of made me sad inside. And it made me think about some of the other YouTube channels that have gone away over the years.
Oh, well, hang on. Before we get to the YouTube channels that we've buried in the backyard with the goldfish, like, what are you going to do for your sumo fix? Are you going to get like a VPN and pretend to be a Japanese citizen?
I don't know. I might just stop. There have to be more people like me out there that otherwise had no access to sumo and weren't going to.
I'm sure there's workarounds for this. This is 2023. You have to be able to pirate sumo somehow.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. NHK is still very much on the broadcast television paradigm. And I've always fought against the broadcast television paradigm. And that is, we will put out what we want you to see and you will watch it and we'll make money off you by watching ads.
I love how you said always as if like you had an alternative back in like the early and mid 80s.
Josh, I haven't paid for cable TV in 20 years. I stopped having an antenna. I stopped watching broadcast anything for all intents and purposes almost a decade and a half ago.
We cut off completely in 2013, and I felt like that was a little early for that to happen. Now it's normal. This is how people get their TV is through streaming services.
Kinda. There's a lot of resistance to it still, and it's because the big corporations have to change their business models. Like, all the time, my cable company that only provides me internet access calls me and tries to get me to upgrade my package to include broadcast television.
I don't think I gave my internet provider my correct phone number.
I get the letters too, but you get the point. They're still trying to say, oh, maybe you forgot something here. Let's get you into the traditional business model of consuming broadcast television.
I don't want to consume broadcast television. Broadcast television is the pits.
Right. I like content on demand. And the way Jason was rebroadcasting these sumo matches was content on demand. I have his feed. It would come up in my YouTube feed. Some days I wouldn't have time to watch it. I'd pick one or two of the matches out and watch them. But if it was all coming in a stream, I either have to watch the whole thing or not at all. Is TiVo still a thing? Like, I don't know. I wouldn't even know how I would do it.
You would get a VPN to pretend to be a Japanese citizen, and then you would have a streaming service in Japan.
Yeah, but then I would have to watch the whole thing or record the whole thing, and he took all that overhead out of it for me. He filtered it.
Hang on. You're assuming that this is not already a solved problem, just in another country in a language you don't speak. I'm sure that they have these kinds of sports packages. We have NFL packages. We have NBA packages.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about having it posted in on-demand streaming content that's segmented. So if I only want to watch 3 of the 40 matches, I can just browse through and watch those 3 matches.
I'm sorry. I thought you were simply inconvenienced. No. This is much deeper. This is, I want it to be curated to me. I want a sumo sommelier to pick through all of this chaff and deliver to me only the most golden wheat.
Yes.
That's
exactly.
That's slightly entitled.
That's gone now. And that's okay, if you're listening, NHK television, that's the cost of having me as a viewer. If you can't provide that, I'm gone. You don't get me.
NHK Sumo, sponsor the podcast.
So who are some of yours, Josh? Some of your YouTube channels that for whatever reason have fallen by the wayside?
So, Ben, I've fallen down the TikTok hole so deep that I haven't watched a lot of YouTube super recently, but I'm going to go, way back in the before times when I was like in college and consuming internet culture on a daily basis.
All right, but I want to put a placeholder on that because I want to ask how TikTok can replace YouTube, but go ahead.
Oh, it's TikTok is actively bad for me in ways that we should probably talk about at some point.
Okay.
All right, so I don't know, this is not a YouTube channel, but I consumed a whole lot of webcomics back in the day. And there was one webcomic that I loved like a lot. Like I loved the art style. I like the guy's
I know what
humor.
it is.
What?
Penny Arcade.
No, Penny Arcade's still a thing. They're still going strong.
Okay. Oh, so this is one that's gone now?
Yes. That's what you asked me, right?
All right. Yes. So I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's called VG Cats.
Huh.
The site is still up. You can go see his comics. I think he's posted 3 in the last 4 years, something like that.
Yeah.
So, like, every once in a while he'll draw something, but it's clear this guy got a real job and this is just still floating out there for some reason.
Okay, that's different than like a corporation making a giant copyright claim against you, but yes.
I'm sorry, did my example?
No. I wasn't trying to exclude that example. One that I can think of that's just like what you said was Homestar Runner.
Yes. Oh, Flash killed Homestar Runner.
Yeah. There's still ways to make animations. And like you said, they've produced a few new videos in the last 4 years, but their heyday was a long time ago. They got real jobs, found other things to do.
Yeah.
That chapter got closed and we no longer get new Homestar Runner content every week or two.
Let's be clear. Like, all right, so listeners, if you don't know what Homestar Runner is,
What? How cool is that? If you don't know what Homestar Runner is, go to homestarrunner.com.
Oh man.
And just start. There's so much content to consume. You'll have a ball.
Skip Homestar Runner entirely. Go straight to Strong Bad Emails. That's where the quality content is. Everything else is like Easter eggy almost. It's like, oh, I know who this character is, but it's kind of dumb. I never liked any of the other characters or any other nonsense that was happening.
I love it all.
No.
Welcome to Homestar10.net.
Oh,
it's .com.
Strong Bad Emails. That's what I liked. I liked going through every one of those when they came out. I liked clicking on all the buttons, looking for all the Easter eggs that they would build into the Flash player. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Sitting there watching the same content over and over for hours, trying to make sure you found all the little secrets.
You didn't learn the trick?
What's the trick?
If you had the tab key, your cursor would highlight the interactive content on the screen. You didn't have to spend time searching for it.
That's the second keyboard shortcut you've taught me, I think, in the last 24 hours that was good to know. I think I texted you earlier today where, like, just recently, like in the last couple of months, I found out in Excel, if you hold down Control and then push an arrow key, it'll jump to the end of whatever the content is. So instead of being super annoying, because, Ben, I don't know if you know this, but I'm an accountant.
Yeah.
And so I do a lot of spreadsheets. And so having to click, drag giant ranges over and over and over all day gets tedious and time consuming. Now I can do Shift, Control, and push down, and it just highlights just the content that I want. Oh, that has saved me.
It goes to the last used line of the spreadsheet.
Yes, and it is. I'm getting like moments of my life back. Like legitimately, my quality of life is better. And then, like, I sent that to you, and you're like, oh, you probably don't even use Windows key arrows to maximize your windows, do you? And I was like, what is he talking about? And I clicked on a window, and you arrow a Windows key and then arrow left, and it snaps it to the left. Windows right, snaps it to the right, up to the top, down, minimizes, and that's going to save me so much time.
Yeah. I love keyboard shortcuts. I still use them. Okay, another one that I missed from the early days of YouTube was one called Barats and Beretta. It was two friends, I think, that just made like stupid content. They did songs, they did parody videos. There was one that I think went ultra viral and really got them famous where they were trying to make a video where they were telling their mother Happy Mother's Day and they kept getting in fights while they were filming it.
I've never seen that.
They did this one called Jesus Pwned You where they had a guy dressed up as Jesus and kids in a park playing sports. And then out of nowhere, some guy in sandals and a wig would come running out and like slap the ball out of their hands.
Well, you can't get mad at him. It's Jesus.
Anyway, it was just the early days of YouTube before it was even monetized. And these guys were they got their own website and they got famous. And then I think they got hired by like television companies to produce real content. Then they stopped producing new videos. And every now and then I go back to their channel hoping that maybe they've just made one more.
But they haven't.
No.
You're subscribed and just waiting for that notification to come in. That's funny. I feel that same way sometimes about CGP Grey. Like
why? He still makes new content.
Does he though? Like he does. I love all of his educational YouTube videos. And there was a time I feel like there's this curve, right? At the beginning, it's like it's educational, it's good, and I liked it. But then it just like the quality and the script writing and everything got better and better and better. And it peaked like 2 years ago, and ever since, like I feel like the COVID pandemic, he's been on the downhill. Like the number of videos that he's released has slowed to a trickle. The quality, like the content.
His last one was 2 months ago, and it's called "The Maddening Mess of Airport Codes." And I like these kind of videos. He also did one about the interstate numbering system for interstate highways.
I saw that one too. Listen, I've seen every one of his videos multiple times.
He's a victim of his own success. I'll tell you, because there are some videos he's made recently I can't watch, and here's what it is. Once you reach a certain level of success where you can just fart out anything you want and everyone's going to watch it and you'll get a bunch of money, then he can indulge and do things that might not necessarily be as popular. He did a 2-part series on the history of the name Tiffany.
Okay, I actually liked the 2-part Tiffany video.
I hated it. It was boring and asinine. I turned it off and refused to watch the second half.
Well, all right, so anyway, like, yeah, I like his content. I like all the stuff that he produces, and it's good quality content, but the number of videos that he's released has decreased steadily, like, over time, like, to the point where you said 2 months ago that I can't believe that it was only 2 months ago. It feels like it was forever and a day ago. But then also, like, a lot of his videos, if you're looking at his channel, it's like, oh, this is a video or a self video of me letting the Tesla autopilot through the windiest street. I'm like, I don't care. Like, teach me something. And it's just 10 minutes of this Tesla driving itself through a windy road. It's like, who cares?
Yeah. And he has 2 channels where he's wise, like in his YouTube content, where he'll have like a secondary channel where it will be those kind of videos where it's just talking and vlogging and those kinds of things. And then his really highly refined animated videos are all on the other channel.
I feel like he gives off the impression that he's got other stuff going on. Like, he's making his big money elsewhere and everything else is just kind of a distraction. That's what it really feels like. So
here's the thing. And there was one that was on both of our lists, and that is the Hello Internet podcast.
Yes. I was a huge fan of the Hello Internet podcast, which is CGP Grey and Brady Heron, who has multiple YouTube channels that are very, very interesting in their own right.
Yes.
They're 2 very different people. They have great chemistry together, and I loved listening to them argue about just stupid nonsense.
Yeah, and it really felt like it was going to go on forever. I mean, Brady was making souvenirs and talking about the Hello Internet Museum and releasing albums on vinyl, wax cylinders, or whatever. and it just felt like it was going to go on forever. And then one day, 2 years ago, the last episode happened, and you didn't know it was the last episode, and they haven't done one since.
Yeah, they never spoke. Why? Like, in the episode, they didn't say that they were going to.
It's not on Twitter. It's not on Reddit, it's not on social media, anywhere. There's no way to know. There's been wild speculation amongst the fans, but no one knows.
Which is crazy in today's day and age. Like, these are both popular content creators that were clearly making a lot of money on this product, and neither one of them has said why it stopped. That's so weird.
I supported them on Patreon, and you can see on Patreon how many people support someone. They made $10,000 just by releasing an episode.
Oh, that's the life, man.
Right. Okay, but here's the thing. What must have gone wrong for them to leave that on the table? Because they also had sponsors. So between sponsorship, views, and the Patreon money that they would get just by releasing an episode, there must have been some kind of acrimonious dispute over money or rights that ended it all.
Some inconsolable argument or disagreement or something. Like, that's the only thing that makes any sense. Otherwise, like, the only other possible explanation is opportunity cost. Is that even despite the tens of thousands of dollars they were making every, 2 weeks that they released their episodes?
Yeah.
That's a good release schedule. I think people should stick to 2-week release dates. Like, despite the tens of thousands of dollars they were making every 2 weeks, that must have been taking a legitimate amount of time away from something that was even more lucrative. That's got to be it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. If we ever know, if we ever find out, we'll talk about it on this podcast. It's one of the great mysteries of the internet. Like you said, with information being as free flowing, you think it would have leaked out by now, and yet it doesn't seem to have. No one knows.
It's weird. Ben, if I will promise right now, I'll promise to listeners, and I'll put my voice onto the internet so it's there forever to haunt me if I ever go back on it. If we start making $10,000 an episode in this podcast, like, I will quit my job, and like the time that we're not recording this podcast, I will live stream and just sit here and just do inane chatter with whoever wants to jump in the chat with me.
All right, I got one more I want to talk about that stopped kinda. So back in the early days of YouTube, there would just be guys like, videos that would go viral one time, like that guy Tay Fonday that would sing that song where he'd turn his head away from the mic to breathe or whatever. I forget. It was
Chocolate Rain.
Chocolate Rain. That was the song. Songs like that. But guys like that wouldn't continue producing content. Well, there was this one, his name was Freddie Greddy. I think he was Swedish, but he spoke pretty good English, and you could tell he grew up consuming American content. And he released this video that to this day is my favorite YouTube video of all time. It's a video montage of him playing a little handheld flute, playing the theme song from The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker.
Okay.
And then after he starts playing it on the flute, then it shows him playing a little handheld drum and a little guitar and some pots and pans and some glasses and singing in a chorus. And it backs out and out and out until he's doing this whole song. And it is glorious. It's just a thrill to the sights and senses. And it's just this humble little teenage kid who's a really talented musician who made this towering achievement of a video that, got, I don't know, 40 million views on YouTube.
That's cool.
Link in the show notes, my favorite ever YouTube video. After that, he kind of played off that fame and just started making other random content. Like he would release a montage video of him playing all the theme songs from the cartoons that he grew up watching. Or all of the sitcom television shows or whatever. And he's a really talented musician. And then one day he just kind of stopped. I don't know, maybe he got a band. Maybe YouTube wasn't getting it. He did have a few copyright disputes. So I don't know what happened. I wish he would come back. So if I had my wish, Brats and Beretta, Homestar Runner, Freddy Greddy, Hello Internet, come on back.
Well, don't come back. Like, if you're doing well, then good on you, and stay doing what you're doing. Like, don't give up lucrative life choices just because Ben wants you to make more content.
Interesting perspective. Yeah. Of course, I don't wish someone like that well. So that brings up an idea about how we get nostalgia for the things of the past that either isn't justified or it's just you need to move on.
I think everybody can say that, and people have been saying that about all the Star Wars fanatics. Like, I've seen this meme recently. I think my brother sent it to me first, where it's like, you guys like talk about Star Wars all the time and how you love Star Wars, and all you do is dog on it for not being good enough. Like, do you actually even like Star Wars?
Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, you get nostalgic for like the breakfast cereal that doesn't exist anymore that you used to eat as a kid, or, the restaurant chain that went out of business that was near your house. But if those things don't exist anymore, were they good?
So I'm trying to think back to the things that I ate as a kid that I can't eat anymore, and I still do. I just recently switched off of Frosted Flakes, which is what I ate when I was growing up as a kid. The favorite place to eat when I was in high school was Whataburger, and there's not one around here, but if I wanted to drive for 15 minutes, I could get to one.
Yeah, but I can think of examples of both of those things that don't exist anymore.
Okay. Well, who's being the pessimistic one in this podcast?
Well, I like what you said when I was like, I wish Hello Internet would come back. I wish Freddy Greddy would produce videos again. I wish Brat and Beretta would. But maybe they're better off, and maybe I'm wrong to wish for that.
Well, this is actually kind of, don't let me get deep here for a second. Maybe it's just because I'm on my second beer already. But maybe this is how our differences in approaching loss. Like I don't know. I appreciate the things that existed, and I appreciate the value that they brought to my life and the utility they provided to me. But now that they're gone, like, all that does is serve to heighten what I remember, the quality of them. You'd rather die at the peak of the mountain than like I'd rather them disappear when I was at the peak of like, oh, this is great, I can't wait for the next episode to come out, rather than watch them fall down this mountain of Game of Thrones season 8 and just disappoint me. And now I've left with a sour taste in my mouth for all of time.
Yeah, I tell my kids that about friendships sometimes, especially when you're a child in the military. You're going to have some lost friendships. And I think you can look back on them, like you said, with the lens of utility, rather than like, if I don't have a friendship that's lasted till today, then it was never of any value to me.
Happiness and sadness are on the same scale, and you can't have one without the other. So if you don't experience sadness, can you ever truly be happy?
Oh, that's nice. Okay, you put in the notes that I destroyed your listening ecosystem. What are you talking about?
Oh, Ben. Okay, I have to preface this before I launch into this. I have to say thank you. You are a thoughtful, caring, and giving person. But how dare you get me expensive gifts without telling me, and then they just show up on my doorstep?
What are you talking about?
Do you know the consternation you caused when we opened this package that was addressed to me? Because, all right, so here's the thing. First of all, when we order from Amazon, which we do on a daily basis, all of it comes to my wife, except for the very select few things that I want to get and not show her before she opens it.
Oh, so if something comes with your name on it, it means it's like a gift for your wife and she shouldn't open it.
Yes, and like her birthday is tomorrow, and so I had packages coming with my name on them all week.
Well, why didn't you give it to her?
Well, so we're standing there on the credenza. We have a credenza right inside where we put all our Amazon packages. And I was like, oh, this is one of the gifts that I bought for you for your birthday. It's a little early. I've got other ones that are coming. Would you like to open this one now?
What?
And then she goes, sure, okay. And so she opens
Oh,
this
no!
Amazon package.
Nicole, I'm so sorry.
And she opens these Ben bought me Raycon earbuds for my listening ecosystem. And we didn't know that. And she's holding, she's like, I have earbuds. And I was like, I didn't order you earbuds. Are we sure these are ours? And we double checked the package label. Nope, this is definitely my name. And this
so when
address.
you sent me the text asking me if I got you those, you were sitting there with your wife trying to figure out if they were hers or not.
I was trying to figure out if this was a mistake that Amazon had sent me the wrong thing.
They didn't come from Amazon, though, did they? They came straight from Raycon.
Oh, I didn't even check. Like,
Yeah.
it's just a package amongst, like, the 5 other packages we got that day. So I'm assuming...
Have we reached that point where Amazon means anything you got in the mail?
Oh, anything that shows up at the doorstep, yeah, probably.
Like we say we Google something when we didn't necessarily search the website google.com.
What other website would you go to search for something? Did you really just go to Alta Vista and say, take me to Gmail, please? Right,
I'm just saying, has Amazon become so ubiquitous that they mean anything you get in the mail now?
In our household, yeah, because why would I get any other mail?
Okay, so you got the earbuds that I sent you.
So I got the earbuds that you sent me, and thank you so much for them. Because
You're welcome.
I wasn't necessarily complaining. I was explaining that at some point I would get earbuds once the current ones I had died. Because I'm a function.
I get it, but it sounded like you were suffering with those old ones.
I'm a function over form guy, and
Yeah.
like they were still functioning, and so it doesn't matter what the form they were. But these are super nice, and this is the thing though. They are different in one key way that has completely disrupted my listening ecosystem.
Okay, I'm interested to know this.
All right, there's no wire between them. Okay,
Right.
Okay.
Before you could like wear them like a necklace.
exactly, and that's the thing. Whenever I wasn't actively listening, I would take my old ears out, and they would click together because they're little magnets, and they would just hang around my neck all day like a little necklace. I would just have them there when I needed them.
Right.
And they had enough standby time because they were bigger or something. I don't know. They had enough standby time to just, I could be listening to them for 10 straight hours and let them stand by the
Wow.
rest of the time. And all day they would go without recharging. Okay. So like they would just come in and out of my ears as I needed
Were
them.
they heavy? Was there a big battery pack on them somewhere?
No, not at all. They were
Weird.
I can show them to you. I don't have them with me, but like
Okay.
there's just a wire. Okay. And like it had a little extra box like near my like halfway down one side with the buttons and like the microphone on it.
Uh-huh.
So maybe they hid some battery capacity in there, perhaps. I don't know.
Okay.
But the ability to take them out of my ears I took for granted, and that's what's different about these ones. These ones are great, by the way. The listening experience is wonderful. They have great noise canceling. But I'm hard of hearing anyway, and so like I can't take them out. If I'm not listening to anything, that's where they stay. They have to stay in my ears because I have nowhere else to put them. And I'm terrified that I'm going to put them in my pocket and forget and wash them.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So I'm working on, like, there's a little case, and I'm showing Ben. It's like, I don't know, how big is this? A couple inches by an inch? Like,
Yeah.
It's not intrusive. You can easily carry this around in your pocket. And so what I'm trying to get in the habit of is keeping this with me. So if I ever have to take them out for a long period of time, I can stow them in this thing and throw them in my pocket.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so the other day my wife, she was talking to me, and I was talking back to her, and she's like, she stops in the middle of our conversation, goes, are you listening to something right now? Can you even hear me? Like, what's going on with the ear things? I'm like, they're not on. There's nothing playing in my ears. I'm talking to you. She's like, this is just going to be a thing now? You're just going to have things in your ears for all time?
That makes me think of like sci-fi movies where they have, headsets on where it's broadcasting video on your face and you can hear things and you're just constantly being bombarded by multiple streams of information all at once.
I think I'm toying with the idea that one of the solutions could be to just wear one at a time. Like when I'm just like doing stuff, like if I'm just walking around the house or if I'm just having one on standby, just keep one in and keep the other open so I can portray that like I'm still actively listening to you as a person.
So I've been wearing Apple AirPods for about 4 years, maybe 5.
Okay.
And I've come to have a set of rules about them. If I'm talking to someone my age or older, I have to take them out of my ears even if they're off because people think of that as rude. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
no, I do, because I thought that today when I was walking around with them. Like, I'm going to walk up to a counter and interact with a person. I have to take these out of my ears, or else they're going to think I'm not listening to them.
But for instance, if I have them on and they're making a noise, I can reach up and double tap on the right one. That's the way I have them set up, and it will pause whatever I'm listening to. If I'm talking to a person that's younger than me, they recognize that as sufficient.
Oh, okay.
They go, okay, that person's paying attention to me. I saw them do the thing that pauses them, and they give me a pass. An older person will keep staring at them until I take them out.
So these have something that I've never had before, and that was the they call it awareness mode.
Audio pass-through?
Yeah, that's basically what it is, where it turns on the little microphones that it has for the phone and then passes through the noise that's outside your head into your head. So it's like they're more transparent and not there.
So it's mixing together the audio signal that you're streaming over Bluetooth with a live stream of what's happening around you.
Yes, and that's something that I can appreciate. I was actually using that earlier today because I was making dinner. I had my hands full and I didn't want to keep taking them in and out as I'm interacting with my family, but I was still listening to my book. And so I just put them in awareness mode. And so if anybody addressed me, I could still hear them and, double tap to pause.
Yeah. Oh, we're so close to solving this, but we're not quite there yet. I tell you, I hate it when I'm like chopping an avocado and my phone rings and I don't have a way to answer it without touching something.
Ah, that makes sense. Well, just use your knuckles, right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I almost can.
That's where you need. That's where I need
the back of my hand on it.
I need the ChatGPT AI in my earbuds so I can it can contextualize and realize what I need in this moment.
Right. Yes.
Here's another weird thing: this is probably a unique problem to me, but I very frequently am listening to books while I'm running. Okay. And my running app, I have an app that tracks all my runs, and it updates me on where I'm at every 5 minutes and then also every mile as two separate notifications with different things that it tells me at those times.
Yeah, and you can change that, but that's what you have set up.
Right. Well, here's the thing, is I found that there's a problem with the software in my phone, down at like the firmware level, I'm sure, because it's happened over multiple phones now, where if I'm listening to a book and then I hit a mile marker and it starts telling me about, like, it stops the book and it starts telling me about the mile marker, right? But the book is still queued up because as soon as that goes away, I start listening to the book again. But if I'm listening to the book and then it does the mile thing and I hit a 5-minute interval, all three, everything breaks. Like everything just goes to crap. So this is the thing. On my old earphones, it would stop my book and then it would kill all of the audio for everything. It would just say activity paused. And like it would just like give up and abandon all hope, ye who enter here. Like it would pause my run, it would pause my book, and like the phone would freak out.
This makes me wonder, what are the other things we have like this in our lives that are when the planets align?
Oh, and this happened to me with these new earbuds when I was out running. So my son has football practice twice a week, and I take the opportunity to run while he's at football practice because there's a little jogging track around the park, and I was like, I can get my run in while he's doing his thing. So kill two birds in one stone, right? Well, these ones were different. This was a completely unique experience for when the three aligned. The planets still aligned again, and I was interested to see if it was my old earphones that was doing this or if it was just the phone. It's the phone.
Oh.
But, like, everything crashed the same way. It paused my book. It paused my running activity. But then also, this was weird, the headphones went into awareness mode for the first time.
Oh.
So I don't know what happened, but, like, everything freaked out.
You're like, whoa, suddenly I can hear ambient noise.
Which was, yes, and I went and researched how to turn it on and off after that because I needed to, because with the awareness mode on and I was outside running, when the wind was blowing, I was getting that feedback like when you're talking to somebody on the phone and you can tell they're in a windy place, like when you're blowing on a microphone, that sound.
Yes.
That's the sound I was getting actively piped into my ears.
And you're like, what's going on?
Well, I knew the awareness mode was on because it's like, it goes, oh, book paused, activity paused, awareness mode activated. I'm like, whoa, what is happening?
All right. Stick with me here for a second. So I have a 2007 car. It's a weird convergence of technology in that age because it has a cassette deck in it.
Hang on. Did you just refer to 2007 as an age?
Yeah. It was the transition from the analog age to the digital age. Cellular service wasn't yet ubiquitous. Definitely Wi-Fi wasn't a thing. It was just we were transitioning.
Are you sure you're not mixing up 2007 with 1997?
I have a 2007 Acura TL which was a, higher end brand back then, but it's, got 260,000 miles on it now. It's an old car, but it was nice back then.
Okay.
So it has a cassette deck. It has a disc changing CD player that could play MP3 discs and not just regular discs.
Those are the good ones.
It has a DVD player in the trunk that it uses not to show videos, but to run the software that runs the navigation system that's now obsolete. So I have a screen on my dash that can still navigate if my phone breaks, but I never need it. And then it has an aux port. And it had rudimentary Bluetooth at the time that was only designed to answer and receive phone calls, but it won't work for streaming music.
Okay.
So I don't have an elegant way to connect it to my car except to the aux port, which is hidden inside the armrest in the center console. So initially all I was doing is I had a dongle that went from my phone to my aux port, but because of the way my phone is, it was a newer model that no longer has a headphone jack. I could either choose between charging my phone or connecting to the aux port.
So this is a 100% iPhone problem because Android users don't have this problem. And
Okay.
Yeah, our USB-C port can carry power and data at the same time.
It'd be different problems because if I had an Android phone and I needed to plug in a USB-C, well, you can get it. So I tried multiple dongles that are made for Apple phones that'll allow you to charge it while you're doing data, and they weren't elegant and they didn't work very well. Okay, all that aside, my car's aux port stopped working. I don't know if it was the wires in the connection or something like that. And now it's like I got to take my car apart to figure it out. Or I could do something else. So I went back to another old technology that was a stopgap. I got one of those little things that you plug. Yeah, I got one of those little things that you plug in your cigarette lighter that broadcasts on a local FM radio station.
I remember those.
Here's the thing. My car has 2 cigarette ports, and my antenna for the FM is on the back of the car. So if I put it in the front cigarette port, it's just there's too many things in the way, and it gets too much interference. But if I put it in the back one, it's down inside of the armrest, and it has the buttons and the microphone on it. So if my phone rings and I want to talk to them on it, I have to open up the armrest and talk down into the armrest in order to talk to this thing.
Are you still rocking the stock stereo system in this Acura?
It has a really nice stereo system. It's the one thing that's aged well in this car. It's glorious.
Well, you say that, but it only interacts with your phone via Bluetooth for phone calls. Like, you can get a non-stock stereo.
But I'm talking about the amplification and the speakers and the bass range and the tweeters and all that. It's really good.
That's fantastic. Just replace the thing in your dash that actually does everything.
It's so custom, Josh. It's just okay. I have lots of reasons. I don't want to get into all that. Anyway, I keep getting these half-step mock-up things that never actually solve the problem. I've got to integrate a microphone I'm not using. I got a screen I'm not using. The wireless doesn't work. Sometimes the radio station gets interference. I just cannot find an elegant solution. I'm going to have to do the thing. The elegant solution
is to replace the stereo in the freaking dashboard, man. That connects to your phone with Android or Apple Auto the way you expect it to, and you get the full functionality of the phone in the car.
Here's the thing. There's only one really good one out there that does what you're saying in a way that I really like, where it replaces the whole center console stack with one giant screen, one giant touch screen.
Geez. You're talking about aesthetics now, dude.
That fits in, but there's lots of complaints in the user forums about it not being fully integrated with the climate control and stuff and causing issues once you install it. So I'm kind of biding my time until all that works out before I install it.
I can solve your problem for you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Get any other aftermarket stereo system for your car that will integrate with the speakers and your phone, and then go get a 3D printer and then custom design a little insert that'll fit over top of it that'll blend in with your dash or whatever the way that you want it to.
It doesn't.
How is this? All right, so you're complaining about if you're on a phone call, you've got to shout into your cup holder and get into a car accident because you're not watching the road. But at the same time, in the same breath, you're going to look at me like, I'm not going to upgrade it because it'll look janky. Dude, you can't have it both ways.
I am for now. I'm not satisfied with it. I'm gonna upgrade to the Tesla screen at some point.
No, you are not allowed to complain about the poor functionality of your car stereo system if you are unwilling to accept anything but the most premium aesthetics.
Sure you can, Josh. You can complain about anything you want anytime.
I mean, that's your right, I guess, even if you're wrong.
All right. Well, speaking of complaining about things, we need to talk about Magic for a little while. This is the Bad at Magic podcast So this week, there's a new Magic set coming out. It's called Phyrexia All Will Be One. Yesterday was the first of the pre-releases, and I'd said something about going to it, and you said what you tend to say to me when this happens. You go, I wish I could go to those. And I always think, why? What's stopping you? Just like you said to me, what's stopping you from putting a new car stereo in your car? So now it's your turn, Lucy, to do some splaining.
Oh, deep cut. There's going to be like 4 people that appreciate that reference and other people that are just like, what is he talking about? All right, Ricky, here's my explanation. So first of all, I was much, much closer to going to this pre-release in paper than I think you realize.
Okay.
To the point,
that's a surprise to me.
To the point where I had it scheduled. Like, I found a local game store that was having a pre-release. It was within a time constraint that I could meet. Like, I could go to that, and then I would show up on time to record this podcast. But then I recalled a very important fact. Like, all right, so I didn't recall the fact. I knew the fact. This happens to me a lot, and maybe you can sympathize. Have you ever held 2 distinct facts in your mind at the same time, only to later realize that they are linked in a way that you didn't realize at first? Like, you can think about one and
go on and explain it. I think I know what you're saying, but go on.
Okay, so I was fully and completely aware. I did not forget. I am on the record, Nicole. I never at any point forgot that this weekend was your birthday. Never forgot that my wife's birthday was this weekend.
Okay, yes, I've definitely done that thing.
But at the same time, I was looking at these schedules like, oh, I could totally make this Magic pre-release to this local game store and be gone for 3 or 4 hours, then come home and sit around for 20 minutes and then go back out to record the podcast for another 3 or 4 hours. And then it took me realizing those 2 thoughts at the same time to be like, oh, I would be gone for a whole day and it's her birthday this weekend. I those 2 things conflict in a way that I can't do the others.
Okay, that's fair. Taking away the fact that this weekend happens to be your wife's birthday, really what's keeping... So you introduced me to Magic. We learned to play together, and we enjoyed it for years and years, and for various reasons you stopped. And yet you've been enjoying it lately online, and you've still kind of resisted coming back to it. What is the weighted average that's keeping you from going back to playing Magic in person?
So it's a bunch of things, man. It's one thing is I don't have a friend locally that I can enjoy the hobby with. You are the only other person in my life that appreciates this hobby to any real extent. And the ability to share this passion with somebody is any pet, not just this passion, but any pet. If you have a hobby, you want to share it with people. You want to have somebody that you can have deep dive conversations about. You know?
I think that's true about anything. If you make model ships, you got a club of guys that go out on Saturday and put your boats out on the lake. Or
you make model trains, you go to the model train store and you hang out with the other model train guys as they're building model trains in the store. Yeah, you want to share your hobby with other people, okay?
Yeah.
And right now I don't have anybody in my life like that at all.
Okay.
That's one reason. And the other reason is I'm worried that I'm going to fall down that rabbit hole. Only in a joking manner, because I have better self-control than that now. But when we met and I introduced you to Magic, I was spending hundreds of dollars a month on this hobby.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was also single with no attachments and just making buku bucks from my perspective.
I think that's wise, Josh, and mature of you to recognize your personality and know your limitations and just be like, you know what, I can just stay out entirely. There's a professor of the Harvard Business School named Clayton Christensen, and he talked about why he made decisions about things that he would do 100% of the time, because doing it 100% of the time is a lot easier than doing it 99 or 98% of the time.
Okay. So that's like this. And then it comes back down to utility. I really did want to go to this pre-release just because I think this new set that's coming out, Phyrexia All Will Be One. The Phyrexians are Magic's oldest bad guy. The story behind it is just so awesome, and the flavor that they're doing is so cool, and they're completely turning the tables on on how Magic mechanically and story-wise is going to work going forward. So there's a lot happening that I really appreciate. And it just has an artifact set, which is
I think of them like the Borg from Star Trek. They're
absolutely
they're trying to assimilate everything.
Yes, and they're fantastic, and they're winning at this point in the story. And I don't know, I just wanted to be a part of it. And I really was going to go, and I was going to go by myself, and I was just going to enjoy being around other Magic people for a while. But then it conflicted the fact that, it's my wife's birthday.
We just had a little good at husbanding moment.
Well, instead, I bought all of the pre-purchase stuff that you can for Magic Arena. Typically, I don't spend money on Magic Arena. I just do the daily quest to get you the free currency, and then use the free currency to play the things that I want to play.
Which is possible, but not enjoyable.
It's possible, but it's slow. It takes a long time to build up that currency to any real point. But the idea is I usually save up enough currency before a new set comes out, and then I'm good enough at the drafting that I can just keep going on the free and maybe drop $20 into it every month or two.
Yeah.
This time, when I recognized I wasn't going to be able to make the pre-release, I actually there was 2 packages that they had for this set that's coming out of Magic Arena, and I just, you know what? I'm just going to treat myself, and I spent $50 and I bought both of the packages, and it comes with a bunch of draft tokens, and it comes with a bunch of like random nonsense that I'll get utility out of. So
okay.
that was my compromise.
Well, I did a draft this morning because my store ran out of the pre-release packs, which I was disappointed in, but I went 2-1 and got a bunch of set boosters. It was fun. It was a good time.
Oh, I want to ask you all of the nerdy questions about like what you played and like how it went and what you ran into, and like you didn't ask me like you usually do about like what the set mechanics are and things.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not feeling as committed to this one. I don't get it as into the story as you do, and it's just another set, and it kind of feels there's some things happening in my life that's making me start to back off mentally from Magic, maybe to get closer to where you are right now.
Whoa. Intervention time. Ben, real talk, buddy. Are you okay? Is everything all right?
So let's do a Bad at Life segment. So I saw an orthopedic surgeon this week and got an MRI for some just cumulative damage to my left shoulder. I think you may have actually been present for one of the events, but over time I've had some injuries to my shoulder to the point where the doctor is recommending a joint replacement.
A shoulder joint replacement?
Yes.
What did you do that you need a shoulder? Are you a professional rodeo clown? Dude,
well, I've done a full fracture of my collarbone and just, some sprains and impacts and injuries and stuff, and I got a bunch of crap wrong. And it hurts all the time. It's hard to reach things high. I can't wash my back. It's difficult to take shirts on and off. Just stuff.
Buddy, we've got medical marijuana for that these days.
Not in the Air Force, you don't.
Is this your disc throwing shoulder? Is that what happened?
No, thank goodness it's not my disc throwing shoulder.
Thank goodness we can still disc golf. Okay, good.
So, but by the time we record episode 92 of the Bad at Magic podcast, I will have had a outpatient arthroscopic surgery on my left shoulder.
What are they going to do?
There's a bone spur I have. He called it a goat's head. It looks pretty gnarly. He said he's going to do something to my subacromial impingement and capsular release, and I don't even know what all that stuff means.
It means he's going to bill your insurance for like every penny that he can milk out of him.
Yeah. So I kind of had to do this thing where I grab him by the collar and be like, listen, doctor, I really need to go on this deployment this summer. I don't need you to do anything where I'm going to like take 6 to 8 weeks to get better. This needs to be like 2 weeks and I'm back on my feet.
I'm sure Alicia appreciated that.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's another discussion.
He said to me the kind of thing doctors say to you when you get to middle age. The reason he's trying to recommend joint replacement now is it's a lot more problematic the older you get. But while I'm young and healthy, he's like, heck yeah, let's do it. But I'm like, no, I don't want that. I want mine. Fix it. So he's going to fix it, I hope. But he looks at me, he says, all right, but don't think this is going to be a home run. This is going to be a double, maybe a triple. Like it'll be better, but it's not going to be like it was before.
He's just trying to set expectations low so like you don't come back at him like, how dare you, or be dissatisfied giving bad Yelp reviews or whatever. Doctors are all about the reputation when it comes to this kind of stuff.
And he's one of those kinds, but that also plays in my favor.
Aren't we at the point where he could just like, I don't know, go in there orthoscopically and then spray like nonstick, or it's like WD-40 in there and just make everything fine? Can he replace the entire ball and socket joint with like Teflon? It's going to last forever.
We're close. I think. I mean, I love the Star Trek just wave some blinky lights by someone and cure cancer.
No. Screw that, sir. It's like, hey, your shoulder's hurt. All right, Doc, we'll take the whole thing off of the collarbone and replace it with a cybernetic, diesel-powered cyberpunk hydraulically bone-crushing like nonsense. That's what I want.
I mean, can you imagine if Luke was trying to fight with the lightsaber? He's like, oh, hang on. I need, oh, crap. I forgot to replace the battery on my hand. It just seems completely trouble-free once they got the cybernetic replacement.
They don't show this at all in the movies, but the fact that, Luke's got a robot hand. But in the Clone Wars cartoons, there's a couple times where Anakin, with his robot hand, will grab somebody and, crush almost the life out of them with that hand. And that's a thing. Yeah,
it's always just seen as a superpower, like with Bucky in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, it's not a superpower, it's just
it's
technology.
Not like, oh crap, my arm fell off. I didn't have it hooked on very tight.
It's like, oh no, I need a replacement prosthetic robot arm. Let's make it to the exact specifications of the Mark I human body. No, sir, it's vibranium. We're going to put lasers in it. You're going to have a grappling hook. The wrist is going to go all the way around so you'll never have to bend your head to eat a taco again. But
it'll also be delicate enough to pick up an egg if you need to.
Absolutely. This is what I'm talking about. This is the cyberpunk future that I want to live in.
We're definitely not there yet. You know what it really felt like that in my lifetime is when eye surgery was new. And they were like, okay, we could do it and you might never need glasses again, or we could blind you irreparably for the rest of your life. And there were some brave early adopters in that early period there, and some that had some problems that eventually got fixed. And now we're through to the other side of it, where it feels like the procedure's worked out, it's well known, it's relatively safe, and it's relatively cheap and easy.
All right, so that's actually something I dealt with and had to ask myself some hard questions when I was
in college. Why have you never done it?
Well, hang on. I was in college, and the Air Force came out and said, hey, if you meet all the other specifications except your eyesight is too bad, if you test everything else is fine, if your depth perception is fine, if your color vision is fine, it's just you need corrective lenses. If you want to be a pilot, we are doing a trial program where you can get free laser eye surgery. We'll correct the vision, and then we'll let you go apply to be a pilot.
I never knew about this.
And so this is the thing. It wasn't LASIK. It was PRK. So the difference is
photoradiokeratotomy.
How do you? It doesn't matter what I talk about.
It's an acronym.
Just know more. You just drive me nuts with your Okay, well, for our listeners who don't know the 3-letter acronym for these things, LASIK is a laser eye surgery where they use a laser to cut a slit in your cornea, the protective surface over your eyeball.
Right.
They peel it back, it's just a little flap. They cut it on 3 sides, they fold it back to get out of the way, and then they make adjustments to the lens of your eye. There is a lens in the front of your eye that can squish and change. That's how you see different distances. And if you don't see well, then it's messed up in some way, and they can correct it physically, and then they put the flap back, and then across the parts where they cut, it just heals back together. But it does leave a tiny invisible scar that will never bother you. Well, at the time, the Air Force was afraid that if you were a pilot pulling G's at specific angles, that scar tissue in your eyeball could be weaker, and it might, rip the flap back open, and then you would be essentially blinded while you're in combat.
Is there any reason to believe that?
I have no idea if that's true or not. That's what the Air Force believed, which is why they did this test program.
So they wanted you to do PRK instead of LASIK.
The difference, listeners, is LASIK does that 3 cuts, folds it back, and then puts it back in place when it's done, and you heal in a matter of a couple of days. PRK, they use the laser to shave that protective layer of your eyeball completely off, adjust the lens, and then you have to wait weeks on weeks for it to grow back. So I never wanted to be a pilot, and so I did think about it. Just for not having to wear glasses ever again was an appealing thing.
For listeners, Josh has glasses on right now, so he obviously didn't do it.
I obviously didn't do it because I am squeamish as all get up, and I would not have made it through that surgery.
Huh.
I almost passed out when I did pass out when I got my blood drawn one time. But anyway, my roommate got it, though. My roommate got the PRK, and he was in crippling pain for, he couldn't leave our room for a full week, and we put multiple blankets over the windows and duct taped the edges.
They were doing that to you while you were still students at the academy?
Yeah, we were. Yes, of course they were.
Dude, that feels akin to government medical experimentation.
It's not akin. It was government experimentation. I'm telling you, it was a trial program that they did on us. Now, that said, for the first week, he was on hardcore opioids and asleep for most of it, but still in just the most dire pain he's ever been in his whole life. And then for the next full calendar year, he was required medically to wear sunglasses whenever he left his room.
Man.
But he had perfect vision.
Yeah, and that was before they'd invested any money into turning you into a pilot. So like, oh, it didn't work out. Oh, well, we didn't lose anything on this guy.
No harm, no foul. Go be a comm officer.
What? That's crazy. All right. Well, I'll let you know how the surgery on my shoulder goes. And then if I'm still going to Kuwait this summer. And that's changing lots of things. Watch this space.
Watch this space. Like, subscribe for more. Stay tuned.
Follow me for more recipes. Okay, Josh.
And hit the bell. I
got a bad at husbanding / bad at parenting thing here.
Both at once.
Okay, so I'm going to start with bad at parenting. So my oldest daughter, who's 19, is home right now, just kind of between graduating from high school and getting ready to go to college. She's been accepted to Utah State University. She's starting this fall. She'd been living with, I think you remember, I told you that my
I thought she
wife's
was going to be
sister-
house sitting at some point.
Yes, kinda. My wife's sister had had breast cancer and needed some help at the house, and she was there for a while. And then she got in a job working as a lifeguard and as a substitute teacher, and she's all embedded there. And she's like, okay, but I need to come back home and buy a car from the South that hasn't been, that's 15 years old but hasn't been run around on salt-covered roads for 15 years, and pack up all my stuff and drive back up there so that I have all my belongings. We're like, fine. So she came home. She's been here since Christmas. And she was just kind of like enjoying not having any responsibilities.
Who doesn't?
Right. So I'm finally like, all right, we need to get you a car. She's like, okay, what do I do? And this was a life moment. Like my two older sons, we hadn't been through this for various reasons. We hadn't gone through this with my older son. So this is the first time I'm helping an adult child buy a car, not knowing anything about it. Like this is Kelly Blue Book. This is a too good to be true offer. This one's too expensive.
Oh man, I remember buying my first car. Dad, I was like, I'm going to buy a car. He's like, okay. And he came home the next day with one of those Auto Trader books. That's like just like the classified ads from a newspaper that you can get for free at any gas station. And he threw it at me and said, all right, find a car.
Yeah. Do you feel like that gave you any overhead? Like, to get a listing in that Auto Trader book, was there a little bit of an assurance that person wasn't trying to scam you, sell you one with like a counterfeit title or a salvage car or a lemon? Or
Absolutely none whatsoever. And I combed through that book and I went through and I thought, okay, I think these are decent offers. He says, oh, okay, that's excellent research. I already found the car that you're going to buy. Let's go see it. And then he took me, and he basically shopped for it and found the car that I ended up purchasing as my first car.
Okay, so as a parent, you probably know this about me. I really value these natural experiments that come along where a child can learn something in a way where they're motivated. It's not artificial in any way. So I was like, I will help you with this. I will give you advice and help you figure things out, but this is going to be your project.
My role here is as a coach and a mentor, not as the person getting it done.
Right. So once she finally got engaged, she surprised me. She really dove in. Once I showed her how to use Kelly Blue Book and stuff, she would come to me and she's like, Dad, this one looks good, but it's $3,000 below Blue Book. I'm like, that they're trying to sucker you. She'd be like, this one's in the Blue Book range, but it looks like it has this issue. I'm like, okay, that one, send him a message and we can go test drive it. So she finally found one that she liked. It was a 15-year-old Honda Civic. That looked pretty reasonable from the photos, and there was enough photos, and the listing looked legit. And the seller on Facebook Marketplace, which I guess is the new Auto Trader, had a history of selling cars like this. So we kind of looked up extracurricularly, found his physical location, and he had like a little auto body shop kind of in the bad part of town, and where he would buy cars at auction, bring them in, and just do minimal repairs on them and turn them around relatively inexpensively.
Okay.
She didn't have a very big budget, and she didn't understand this stuff. I kept trying to tell her, like, you're going to buy a car, and you're going to have to pay for taxes, and you're going to have to pay for registration, you're going to have to get insurance, and there's going to be a couple things wrong with it, and it's going to cost more than you think.
Oh,
so
yeah. It's way more than just what the number on the windshield is.
Yeah, I mean, she paid $3,500 for it, but I think all told, it's getting closer to $5,000 it's cost her.
That's still good for a used car in this economy.
Right. So it's a 2007 Honda Civic with 136,000 miles, but it's been rebuilt after a collision where it was hit in the rear and rear-ended somebody in front of it. Airbags deployed. It's got some issues. It didn't destroy the engine. It's a reliable little engine, and it seems to be all right. So I'm not worried about her safety or her breaking down on the side of the road. I think it's okay.
That's good. And she can pull start it all by herself.
It is a tiny little engine. We got.
Did you show her how to mix the oil with the gas when she gets new gas?
Here's the thing I wasn't ready for. If you buy a car from a dealer that's been a trade-in, they kind of, if it's below a certain threshold, they offload it onto other places. It's like it hurts their reputation if they sell too old or too beat up of a vehicle.
Okay.
So the minimum you can get a car at a dealer for, even a used one, is like $8,000 and up.
Well, right, and they've got overhead and things, and they're higher quality and blah, 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 and the rest go to that auction house you were talking about.
Yes, so if you want one below the $8,000 threshold, then you're kind of taking a jump down, and we really had a crazy experience. So, first of all, they wanted all cash, and when I say all cash, I mean actual cash. So
can you get $3,000 cash without filling out forms?
That's a problem. It's a huge problem. Here's the thing. We bank online and have for decades, and there are no branches.
Yeah, USAA doesn't have bank branches.
Right, so the only way to get the money is out of ATMs, and as I've established with the different story I told in this podcast, most ATMs have a limit of how much you can take out at one time.
Yes, I remember you trying to pay the taxes on a vehicle with an ATM that shuts you down.
Yeah. So I was wise because of all that, so we got our limit increased, but still we were going to an ATM, and we were basically emptying out the magazine.
Oh, gosh.
Then we're walking around with a wad of cash. I mean, $3,500 is a lot of 20s. It's a lot. And yeah, it just felt so bad doing all this. So we got all this cash, we went and paid, and the paper was legit, and this place was doing the thing. But then we reached a point in the transaction where we need to notarize. I can't tell you, Josh. We needed to notarize the title. Yeah. And he says, okay, come on, let's go down. It was a Saturday. He's like, okay, let's go down to Crazy Bessie's house and she'll notarize the title. And we drive down the block and stop under the house of this, where there's this big old tree overhanging this clappered paint peeling off the outside's house with a giant pit bull with shoelaces at corners of its mouth, slobbering and barking at us. So He gets out and kind of calms down the dog and tells us to go into this house. And we go in, and it's dark and it's smelly. And there's this lady on oxygen gasping for air, and leads us into her dining room that's covered. It was cluttered and messy.
Did she notarize the document, Ben?
Here's the thing. She notarized it, but him and her were carrying on this running, friendly Southern Louisiana conversation, and she kept asking us important questions in between, talking about Ike and Tina Turner.
Okay, but
and at one point she asked someone's last name, and then she just repeated it out loud that was not the right last name, and kept writing. And then after she notarized it, and we were walking away, I looked down and she'd written the wrong last name for my daughter.
Nice. Okay. Well, that's a problem.
And you can't just change a last name on an auto title. So we went back in there, and then we had to fill out an affidavit of corrections. And this was just because we're not professional enough to focus. There's still this running conversation about Tina Turner going on, and I'm like, can we just focus? We're trying to do a cash transaction.
How much did you pay for this notary service?
$20.
Okay, that's cheap for a notary.
Right.
I recently had to pay $40 for a mobile notary to come and notarize one of my documents, and I also had to tell her how to do her job because she almost forgot to stamp it.
There's a minimum threshold I'm willing to pay, and it's not 20. I need my notary to be a bit more professional than that.
Side note, do you know what it takes to become a notary public?
Okay. Do you want me to speculate, or you just want to tell me? Because I think I know. I mean, you just got to go through a class that shows you understand the kinds of things that require it, and that you do it with. They keep a ledger, and they have a rubber stamp, and they're like, all right, I see that you're doing this document, and you're the one it's being transferred to, and I'm witnessing this transaction, and they sign it and stamp it, and yeah.
You take an online course, you pay a minimal fee, you buy a ledger. That's it.
Okay.
And it's honestly, like, if you got nothing else going on, it's a nice little side hustle you can do.
Yeah. Anyway, finally got all that done. Daughter's got a car. Everything's good to go. On a related note, in the vein of bad at husbanding and bad at parenting,
Oh, yeah. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, well, there are my personal quirks and preferences and ideas that lead into things like the fact that instead of taking over and showing her how to do that, I let her take the lead and I supported her through doing all of it. And it got a little bit crazy. And at one point, we were being chased by a pit bull through the neighborhood, but she got a cheap car that's working relatively well.
How is that bad at parenting? Did the wheels fall off as you were driving away from it? Like, did you say, well, this turned out to be a pretty good deal, and then something fell off the car?
Dad might have been more in charge of the process, but I let her take the lead on it. And as I've watched her take care of it since she's got it, you can tell that she feels like ownership over the whole thing.
You see, there you go. That's not bad at parenting. You did what you were supposed to do. Like, you transferred enough of the responsibility of the transaction to her that she feels, and she's taken a personal stake in the maintenance and the upkeep of this car.
Yeah, I guess. And that was just, I had this kind of, I'd never been through this before. I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. I had my preferences, but my weighted average was, I need her to take the lead on this so she'll own it. And it worked out that way. However, sometimes there's things about my personality where I'm not satisfied with it, and I think I could be better at this. For instance,
it sounds like you just want to go buy a car. Do you just want to go buy a new car, Ben?
No. I want my radio to work.
I want my radio to work, but I also want it to look perfectly and not mess up the aesthetic of my 2007 Acura.
Yes. Sometimes I'll see other families, and you do this sometimes, Josh, where I see something that you do with your kids, and I really am envious of it in a good way. Not like this toxic kind of jealousy, but just like, oh, Josh is a good dad. He really cares about spending time with his kids. I like the way he does that. And sometimes it's just a nice little feeling, but sometimes it's serious. Like, I need to figure out how to be like that. And one way I see other parents is I like parents that are very warm in a physically affectionate kind of way, like they hug their children. And it's just been too many years of that not being our standard MO around here that it's weird when I try to do it now.
Okay.
And I'm trying to change it. And so it's a little bit awkward when I pass them in the house and I just grab them and give them a hug. And they're like, why'd you do that? And I'm like, because I'm trying to hug you guys more.
Well, you can say that. You can just say, I'm trying to display more physical affection and express my love and devotion to you people. And I realize touch might not be my love language, but it might be yours. So I'm going to make an effort.
Yeah, it just made me think of that. Times when there's something about ourselves that we want to change, whether it's because it's a weakness or it's just something we see that we admire that we want to add.
Have you asked your kids if their love language is touch? Do they want to be hugged more, or are you giving them unsolicited, unwanted hugs?
That's the thing about having 6 kids is it's all over the map.
Well, okay, so recently I saw a little video where there was a teacher and all of her kids were coming into her classroom in line.
Yes, I've seen it. Yeah, she's got like 4 little things, and they point to which one. Do you want the high five? Do you want the handshake? Do you want the hug?
You want to do a little dance together for a second? Yeah. You can do that with your kids totally. Just put that little thing up by the front door. And just whenever
I kind of like that, except that makes it. She only does that during the transaction time when they're all coming in the morning, and that still requires her to line them up. And you don't really line your kids up at any point during the day.
Perfect. We can go back to a more traditional day, like back in the Mary Poppins movie, where like, oh yes, governess, bring down the children. I will
blow the whistle.
I will see them for the next 5 minutes before I dismiss them from my life for the rest of the evening, and I will interact with them, and I will assess their state of being. And then they can choose if they want a fist bump, a hug, or a pat on the head. And then I will go about my business.
That's awesome. Okay, so I was telling you that little story. Did you think of any like those parenting kind of things that you want to emulate, that you're trying to change from the old way you did it?
So I'm always, and this is what's weird about being a parent, is you're always thinking about how you were parented. And then it doesn't matter how good your parents were, because my parents were great. They gave me every advantage and every opportunity, and I have nothing to slight them. But, when you're a kid, you're so fixated on your relationship with your parents, you can always pick out the things like, oh, I wanted my parents to do this.
Oh, yeah.
More. And so there's a couple of things that I'm constantly reminding myself of when I'm interacting with my kids. And one of those things is that, so I'm kind of the black sheep in my family, right? I was a nerd. I was into role-playing games and video games and technology and computers and just everything that my dad doesn't like to do, okay?
Oh.
And I remember what it felt like to be jazzed up or excited about something and getting like nothing back from my parents.
Okay.
And so whenever my son or my daughter go off on like descriptions about things that they're excited or enthused about, like as long as it's a real thing, like if they're talking about some streamer on YouTube, like, okay, that's great. Like you just need to show it to me because you describing YouTube video is not doing anything for anybody.
Yes.
But if they're legitimately pumped up about a subject, I try in the moment, and it's hard, man. Oh man, it's hard to like engage with them about it. Like, tell me
Josh,
about
this is so touching. Good for you.
Oh, stop it.
I love it. I love that you're like, okay, I want to be interested in my kids' lives because that's a value that I want to espouse and a connection I want to have with them. That's great.
It's not about if I like it or not. They like it and they're interested, and like that's the thing. Just you're supporting them, right?
Yeah. Yes. And you're right. There are the things that are harder to do that for than others, but I think it's worthwhile to just put some effort into being interested in what they're interested in because they're interested in it.
Man, I'll tell you, Ben, I like Star Wars. Like, I legitimately like Star Wars, but my son knows the name of like 10 different Clone Wars, like Clone Trooper commandos, and like goes off on like their whole backstory and things. And like, it gets to the point where it's super esoteric even for me. And it's like, it becomes difficult, but it's worth the effort to be like, yes, tell me more about Commander Fox and wow, he is different from Commander
When
Cody.
kids try to talk to me about Minecraft, I have that problem. Or when my daughter tries to talk to me about skincare routines, oh my gosh, I really try to pay attention, but I so don't want to.
So I found it makes it a little bit easier if you can find even one teeny tiny aspect of the thing that they're enthused about that you can not necessarily relate to, but that you're interested in. Like I have a coworker that was super pumped about, she's just so into her eating routine. Like she goes to a registered dietitian and she's like,
and she can go on and on and on about it, can't she?
Ad nauseum about the levels of the different bacteria that are in her system. And so like I found that like I hate it. Like she'll just drone on and on about it forever. Now, not a problem anymore since we're teleworking. But when we were in the office together, I realized that I could fixate on the chemistry.
That's some of the productivity your employer's getting back by letting you telework.
This is absolutely true because now this person is not yakking at me, and I don't have to pretend to listen for however many hours in the day.
But you found something about that you could key in on that you were interested in.
Yes, like the actual bacteria cultures and like the body chemistry aspect of it. Like I don't care what kind of oats that you're mixing with your cinnamon powder. Tell me why you're doing that. What is this supposed to, like, what's the end state here?
Okay, I got one more. So not only do I do that with my kids, but sometimes I do that with my spouse. And that is sometimes I will see another husband do something in his relationship with his wife, and I think, ooh, I really like that. I wish I had that in my relationship with my wife. And one of them is when I see them talk magnanimously and enviously about their wife. Oh, my wife, she's such a good whatever. I really like that about her. And just brag about her publicly unprompted. Like no one asked or whatever, and it comes up. And I don't think, oh, whatever, this guy always goes on about his wife. I always think, man, I wish I was better about that. I wish I was better about thinking about the manifold virtues that my wife has and bringing that up in regular conversation.
Well, I don't know. Those are two different things. Like you can be appreciative of your wife's strong points, but then bringing them up in a public setting, like was their wife present or is just...
Okay, so the person I think of most was a Navy lieutenant that worked for me back in Illinois, and he never did it in a way that felt forced or unnatural. It would just come up in the course of the conversation.
But was his wife there?
No.
Oh, okay.
This was in the absence of her.
So he was just bragging. He was just flexing on everybody and how cool his girlfriend was.
Yeah, but in a way that didn't feel like bragging. That's the envious part about it.
So you just want to brag in ways that don't make you seem like stuck up or entitled.
But I'm thinking about what's happening under the hood, and that is that should be the thing that comes to my mind when I think about what I'm grateful for. Like if you say, "What did you do over the weekend?" I'd be like, "Well, after I got all the chores done, I just had a couple hours and I was able to spend some time with my wife. And man, I sure did win when I got her in my life. We just had a great time. That was the best part of my week."
Okay, so that's another thing that we're really talking about, is that it's so, as a parent especially, it's so easy to get bogged down in 99% of our life is just fighting entropy. Whether it's working to earn the money to maintain the household or actually doing the work to maintain the household. And you're left with so little else that it's just, I don't know. Sometimes it feels like, Groundhog Day, which just kind of happened. But it's just like the same things are happening over and over and over again. And you just get these little glimpses of the things that you actually want to do and how you actually want to spend your time. And I find that the little time that I get, I want to spend with my wife and my kids.
Yeah, that's nice. Me too. And I want to the way that you do sometimes. Like sometimes I'll text you something, you'd be like, "Can't, I'm going on an outing with the family." And then you'll send me you'll text me photos from the outing and it looks like you guys are having a ball. And I always just look at those with gratitude. Gratitude for your friendship, gratitude for the time you're spending with your family. I just think that's so nice. That's so nice. I love it.
I'm sticky from all these gross emotions.
All right, it's time for Bad at Rhetoric. So this week on Bad at Rhetoric, this one's gonna be really quick if I can find my mouse pointer.
All right. So let's talk about that for a second. As we increase our monitor real estate, that's becoming more and more of a problem. We're gonna need Windows developers, if you're listening, we're gonna need a button that'll make the mouse cursor blink the way. Oh Ben, I just realized maybe we're just old. Maybe we're just getting to the age where we need the clicker or the sound device on the remote control for the TV. This living room is too big and I can't find the remote. I need something to tell me where it is. Is that what's happening with the mouse pointer?
This Bad at Rhetoric is called categoria. The definition it says is opening the secret wickedness of one's adversary before his face.
The secret wickedness of the adversary before his face.
Yes. So when I read this, and it doesn't give a lot of examples, but the examples that came to mind were in the James Bond series. It's almost a standard...
Oh, the monologuing.
Yes. But it's almost a standard practice in every one of those movies. Even though James Bond is a very good spy, at some point he gets caught by the arch villain.
Well, that's a plot device for us as the reader to understand the perspective of the bad guy.
Yes, but the bad guy, part of his speech, part of his monologue is to tell you his master plan and his desires for world domination and power. But another part of his plan is to tell James Bond why he was an idiot for getting caught and why he's weak for following his country and doing the things that he was doing. It's categoria, opening the secret wickedness of one's adversary before his face.
So this is so this is not just displaying this is my point of view and why it's different from yours, but also this is how you are wrong and why I am superior to you.
Yes. My favorite one is from Return of the Jedi. It's when Luke is in the Emperor's throne room and the Emperor says, Luke says to the Emperor, oh crap, I'm gonna boggle the line, but it's your faith in your friends is your weakness. Luke says your overconfidence is your weakness, and he says your faith in your friends is yours. So they're exchanging categoria. They're exposing their adversary's secret weakness.
Man, spoilers for Star Wars in this episode.
All right, that's categoria.
Well,
all right, Josh.
Wait.
Go ahead. Let's hear your categoria.
So, I don't know if this is an example of categoria, but I'm just bringing up famous bad guy monologues in movies.
Uh-huh.
This is one of the best comic book adaptations, which was The Watchmen. I don't know if you've seen it. It is a classic. I recommend.
It's based on a graphic novel
called The Watchmen, which won a Pulitzer Prize. It is one of the top 100 novels of all time, and it's a graphic novel. I would recommend you reading The Watchmen because it's very, very good. And one of the best parts about it is what the person, I'm not going to spoil that because it is good, that turns out to be the bad guy at the end does this whole monologue about why he's doing all these things and what the thing is. And they're like, oh, you just spat off your master plan. I'm just going to stop you. And he's like, what am I, some comic book villain? Do you think I would tell you all of my plans if you had any possibility of altering them? I triggered it 30 minutes ago. And then it shows in the comic all the stuff that he was talking about had already happened.
Right. It's already done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Classic.
Listeners, I think we should pause for a moment here and think of how significant it is with all of the things that we spoil on this podcast, that Josh has such reverence for a particular intellectual property that he's still unwilling to spoil it, even though it's like 30 years old.
The Watchmen is really interesting and unique in the graphic novel space because it asks the question, like, what do superheroes do when there's no supervillain? And it's really like the superheroes fighting against human nature, and I really like it. It's good.
Yeah, that was a good synopsis. For our last few minutes here, I want to tell you a story. Have you ever heard of the Principality of Sealand?
Well, first of all, Sealand. What is Sealand? Like, it's sea or it's land? Pick a lane.
Sealand, like Greenland or Iceland, like a place.
I've never heard of the Principality of Sealand. No.
Okay, wait till. All right, Josh. I'm going to introduce you to the patron saint of the Bad at Magic podcast.
Oh, jeez. You've got me so. What are you talking about?
Okay, so let's go back to World War II. So in World War II, the British Isles were this fortress where they were trying to defend against the onslaught of the Germans, particularly the Luftwaffe that were coming over and conducting strategic bombing campaigns against military centers in the United Kingdom.
One of Hitler's 3 major mistakes that led to his downfall. Yes, leaving the Luftwaffe to destroy Britain instead of invading it.
So one of the myriad of defensive strategies that the British undertook was to build these off-land forts that would just house anti-aircraft batteries. They were very well defended and kind of out in the water so that they could see Luftwaffe aircraft coming across the English Channel or the North Sea before they could get to land and have a chance to bring them down.
Flak! Just shotguns in the sky.
Yes. Well, they technically, according to the law of the sea and international waters, which only extended at the time 3 miles out from the mainland of the continent, was the sovereign territory of the United Kingdom, they were supposed to build them within that barrier. However, playing fast and loose with the rules and depth of the seafloor and geography being the case, they built several that were outside of that 3-mile envelope.
This is going to go back to our bureaucracy thing where, well, technically they're outside of international waters, and so they're a sovereign state.
Yes.
That's outstanding.
You're seeing ahead. So there was one called Ruff's Tower that was 7 miles off the shore of the ceremonial county of Essex, near Ipswich. And basically, after the end of World War II, it became abandoned, and they sent the military out to destroy the ones that were inside of the territory. But this one was kind of weird because technically it was illegal. It was 7 miles offshore, outside in international waters. The British had basically claimed some territory that wasn't theirs.
Oh no, we accidentally built something to protect our citizens from the genocidal maniac on the mainland outside of the boundaries of the rules.
Josh, you're usually the one that speaks up in favor of the rule of law. This was...
I agree. I'm usually the one speaking on the side of bureaucracy and the rule of law, but when like the phrase genocidal maniac like overrides a lot of that.
Okay, so here's what they were. Photos in the Facebook photo album, and I might put a link to a video in the show notes. There are these 2 giant concrete towers that are maybe 20 feet in diameter that extend down to the seafloor and then extend 100 feet above the surface of the ocean. And they're about 30 feet apart, and then they have a platform across the top of them that has a structure where it could house the anti-aircraft guns, and then it had a helicopter pad.
Please tell me some nut job got in a rowboat, rowed out there, and just decided that it was his now and that he's a new country all by himself.
Yes!
Oh, that's outstanding. Yes!
Okay, this was in the early 60s, there was a UK Army major by the name of Roy Bates who was trying to indulge in some amateur radio broadcasting. But at the time, the British rules about broadcasting over the radio were just utterly impenetrable.
That same thing exists here in the U.S. It's called the FCC. You can't just put a big antenna in your backyard and start broadcasting in FM bands. You can't do that.
Right, but there's a process for registering and doing it if you want to. But for him, there was no process. There was no way to do it. If you weren't the BBC, you weren't going to broadcast on the radio.
Okay.
So he could see 7 miles offshore Ruff's Tower, and he decided to go out to Ruff's Tower and based on the laws of the sea, it was res derelict, terra nullius. It was land that was unclaimed, that wasn't technically the British land, wasn't the United Kingdom. So he went out there and set up some equipment and started broadcasting what he called Radio Sussex. And it pissed the British off to no end, but they technically couldn't do anything because he wasn't on their land.
I mean, they technically couldn't do anything to him, but practically they could do a lot to him.
So, yes, and they did. So, because of this, he made sure it was continuously occupied, and they sent out the Royal Navy, and they started blowing these things up anywhere else they existed. So this became one of, like, the only ones left.
Okay.
And in 1967, him and his wife and 2 kids went out there and declared it the Principality of Sealand. They made a flag, they named it, they declared it its own sovereign nation. And he was the prince and his wife was the princess.
And he had absolutely no idea of the legal ramifications of what he was doing.
Oh my gosh. Well, he must have done some research, but you don't even know the can of worms he opened up.
I right just off the top of my head. The next
okay,
time,
go ahead.
The next time they needed groceries and try to get in their little boat and go across the channel so they can get groceries from wherever, that country's gonna be like, whoa, I'm sorry. You're from a foreign country. Do you have a passport? Do you have a visa? What are the trade agreements? What taxes are you going to pay? Is there customs for what you're bringing into our country?
Yes.
There's just so much bureaucracy that he has to penetrate now.
All of that. So over the course of that, he basically set up Sealand to be its own independent nation. They were still British citizens, but they, as the king and queen, the prince and princess, and that's why it's called a principality because he's a prince of Sealand. They set up their own passport office and their own visas, and they authorized travel. So, but
they authorized travel to the Principality of Sealand.
They were also British citizens, and the British never got. All right. He never rose up enough above the level that they did things like revoke his citizenship or anything like that. It
would take an act of parliament to actually create or revoke a treaty to say, yea, verily, any citizens of this principality have to give up their UK citizenship or whatever.
Right. So that just never happened. Well, in the late 60s, they're out there enjoying their towers and their thing, and they're like, hey, we got our own country here. And the word got out. And people started to attack because they're not the British, so there's no police, there's no military.
Oh, geez.
They're their own sovereign country. They sustained 7 armed attacks. We're talking Molotov cocktails, firearms, projectiles.
Leave it to the worst of humanity to come out and exploit situations of technical loopholes.
At one point, some Dutch and German citizens, under the guise of a potential business dealing, came out when the prince was away and took his son Michael hostage and kidnapped the prince, basically.
It's just the purge. Like, there's no cops, there's no laws. I'm going to do whatever I want. And it's just the dregs of humanity.
Yeah. Well, this same prince, Michael, had basically the government was doing like you said, where they were kind of stacking up bureaucratic parking tickets against him. And at one point he'd come back to England and they arrested him and tried to charge him with a bunch of stuff, but it actually backfired because on a lot of the charges they had to kind of acknowledge the existence of this nation that they hadn't yet, and it became a de facto acknowledgement of Sealand's sovereignty.
Nice.
So
gotta love legal battles. Oh, the nuance.
In the mid-70s, they went all out. They started just like, all right, what do we have that nothing else has? We set up our own country here, 7 miles off the coast of England. We got a national anthem. We got stamps. We got coins minted. We're issuing passports. If you're the traveler that wants to check off every country in the world, Sealand has to be on your list. You need to go get your passport stamped at Sealand. In 1978 was this coup d'etat I mentioned, where these guys went out there and kidnapped Prince Roy while he was away. So Major Roy Bates, in order to rescue his son Michael, sets up a military expedition. They land on the platform with a helicopter. They capture the hostile overtakers that took over the Principality of Sealand. And Sealand happens to have a jail in the basement of one of the towers.
That's convenient.
So they take these terrorists, basically, and keep them prisoner. And the Dutch negotiated for the release of the Dutch citizens, but the German guy sat in the prison for a long time. Till finally the Germans send an ambassador to the Principality of Sealand to negotiate the release of the German prisoner.
That's got to be one of the best negotiations ever, because this guy, this ambassador, this professional diplomat has sat down at tables with nation states where they are discussing trade treaties and gross economic outputs of entire nation states. Meanwhile, he goes and he's got to talk to a guy about, well, we'd really like some air conditioning.
So he flies out to the Principality of Sealand, lands on the thing. They have a conference room table set or whatever. They negotiate. This gives the Principality of Sealand further legitimacy. They negotiate for the release, and the German guy's taken away. There haven't been any incidents like that since the late 70s. I don't know what it was about that time, but it hasn't happened.
Whoa. This is not still a thing. This can't possibly still be a thing.
I'm getting to it, Josh. I may or may not be a duke of the Principality of Sealand. So in the mid 1980s, the UK decided that they went through whatever legal you got to go through with the UN or whatever to extend the distance of territorial waters from 3 to 12 miles. Well, it's specifically prohibited in the law of the sea to change the distance out from your shores to gain new land. So Sealand also declared their expansion from 3 to 12 miles, which meant that their two borders clashed up in chunks against each other at the halfway point.
Okay.
So now the British government treats Sealand as an independent state.
To this day.
Yes.
Get out of town. This is still a thing.
They have a flag. There's people living there. You can go there.
That the government of the UK built that is now a foreign country?
Yes.
Are they part of the the European Union?
I don't know. I forgot to look that up. So in the early 2000s, as the .com boom was starting to happen, they're like, we could probably make some money here if we just take the basement of one of these towers and turn it into a server farm.
Absolutely. 100%.
So they set up this company called Havenco and started building a server farm I'll put a photo of this server farm inside of the tower out in the Principality of Sealand. But basically, for whatever reasons, they just never got off the ground. It was one of the chaff of the .com bust. So they bought a bunch of servers, hired a CEO, everybody quit, and it never really got anywhere.
They just set up as a powered repeating station, right? I mean, for long haul transmission cables, I feel like it'd be a good hub for that.
Yeah, now it's mostly just a curiosity, a historical relic of World War II that people find fascinating, and they make their money selling flags and T-shirts and little titles of royalty.
There it is. So you, sir, you actually purchased yourself a title?
I almost did, Josh, but because this is more than a joke, like when you got one for Nicole, this would actually make me a citizen of the Principality of Sealand when I do things like renew my top secret security clearance and it asks me if I have dual citizenship. This would actually constitute dual citizenship, and it would probably cause me to lose my security clearance. So I didn't go through with it. But I'm making Major Roy Bates the patron saint of Ben versus Bureaucracy on the Bad at Magic podcast.
Well, why? Because he wasn't fed up with the
bureaucracy. Because he took on the man and he defended it with military force.
I mean, he did take on the oldest man in the book. When you think of
the King man, of England,
the actual the British monarchy is the
7
top.
miles off their shore. He stands there like a thumb on the nose, wiggling his fingers.
That's top shelf, the man right there.
Yeah.
So I can't fault you for that one. That's
the story of the Principality of Sealand.
That's I don't even know where to go with this. Because there's so many examples of this being attempted and failing in the modern world, right?
Right? It could have just become extinct at any point. There were times that the Royal Navy was trying to trick them to leave long enough for them to install explosives and blow the thing up, and they just got away with it.
There have been multiple people that set up floating rafts or something off the coast of Florida and try the same thing, only for the next hurricane to come completely wipe them out. There's that nut job that claimed the moon. You've heard of that, right?
No, I guess he just did the legal research to what he needed to do to say it was his.
Yes, he says that he owns the moon and he sells pieces of it. And what I think is really funny about that is he has absolutely no way of defending or staking his claim. So
but neither does anyone else.
Yeah, but the first nation state that gets it in its head that, hey, let's go back to the moon and leave something there, like, they're not going to even think about this guy. And he's going to have absolutely no way of enforcing it.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty crazy that if you were like at this curious little outpost 7 miles off the coast of England, and like people come out and are legitimately shooting guns at you, and you don't have a military, you are the military. Like, this is it. This is your nation.
All I keep thinking about is the logistics. Like, where do they get running water? Where's their power coming from?
Go to the website I just sent you a link to, and you can see there's a helicopter shot of it, and you can see their solar panels, their windmills, their flag. You can see what look like water barrels outside, the helicopter pad, all that kind of stuff.
This thing is not that big. Like, this is, I mean, several thousand square feet, but I mean, we're talking about a large home. We're not talking about a state.
Yep, but it is a state.
It looks like a third world state.
Yeah.
The world's smallest country. I
got it.
I love that there's two buttons on the front page: Our Story and Shop. It's like, learn about us and please give us your money.
I can't deny that this is on my bucket list of places I would like to go someday.
No. This is one of those things I'm glad I know about, but I'm not going to go there.
All right. Well, if you have something you'd like to say about anything we talked about today, you can go to our Facebook page and you can join in the conversation there, or you can go to our subreddit and be part of the conversation.
If you like what we do, consider sharing us with a friend. If you like us, maybe your friends will like us too. If you really want to show us some love, think about taking your phone out of your pocket and giving us a good review on the podcast player of your choice. It is crazy the amount of visibility we can get from that. And if you already have, thank you very much. If you really love us and you want me and Ben to sit and talk about just the stupidest, most inane things while spoiling Star Wars from now until the end of time, please consider becoming a patron on our Patreon page.
And until next time, try to be a little less bad at magic.